Good afternoon. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about Cornell note taking, and the topic that we're going to be using while we're taking notes is about perfect pairs, which is using fiction and nonfiction or expository children's picture books to teach life science. You will have access to a choice of K2 or 3 through 5 as far as your lessons when you are working on this course. Melissa Stewart and Nancy Chesley have basically put together suggested books. One is fiction, one is nonfiction or expository text for you to choose from, and you will have a choice of those books and the grade level that you want to use when you develop your lesson. And so today we're going to be talking a little bit about Cornell notes. And when you are taking your Cornell notes, you will see at the top, you put the date, you put your name, and you have that opportunity to do that. And also, you will be taking notes on lined paper, and periodically you will stop and go back as you're taking your notes, and you'll think about what are the big ideas out of this whole section that we have been talking about that I want to put over in the left-hand column. Now, as you're taking your notes, that is your process. And this is a process that if you are teaching 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade, even if you end up teaching adults at some point in your career, Cornell notes are noteworthy because they give you a place to get down all of your rough ideas. Then you have to pull out the ideas, the main ideas, over to the left, and then down at the bottom, you do a summary statement to actually help you to think through your notes. One of the things that we know as we have been working with note taking over the last couple of semesters is that the more you take notes, the more likely you are to be able to write extensively and to actually use what you're hearing as a way to influence the writing and the test taking skills that are going to be necessary for you to be successful in all of the education courses. So we're going to take a look now at this book. It's published by Stenhouse. Two teachers actually wrote this book, Melissa Stewart and Nancy Chesley. And the first part of the book is the introduction, and it basically is talking about how the perfect pairs and the way that they have grouped these books can actually help us. And one of the points that they make in this book is that not all nonfiction or expository text for children is created equal. And what they have done is they have spent years finding the best children's books to help us to use for life science instruction. And then they explain to us in this first part where we're actually taking our notes in the introduction is why are we combining science and children's books in the first place? And why pair fiction and nonfiction? And I like to think of nonfiction as also being called expository text or a text that explains. And then they talk a little bit about who is the guide to be used for. So you see that most of this is they take a children's picture book and they actually give you a lot of the lesson, and you will actually be able to use a lot of the material in this book. But you will also be able to use what you already know on your lesson plan writing. In the book, they acknowledge that they have actually used these materials in elementary schools, and some schools have actually embraced this technique. In Talladega College Education Department, we have been using these techniques for some time now. And you actually have a copy of this book that you can go back in and read this. Perfect pairs can actually help you. And what we're finding is that hands-on lessons are wonderful, but it's very difficult for classroom teachers at times to get direct observation and firsthand experiences for students in science. And we know that that's an important part of science and you must do it. But when you're teaching some sciences, it's very, very difficult to actually go out and actually observe, particularly in life science. And so they have designed these books to give us some help when we can't use firsthand experiences or experiments to find out the information that we want and we need for our students to be able to understand our standards. For example, it's easy for children to go out and take their science notebooks and sketch and draw and think about the weather or the properties of matter for that matter. They can also use things like light and science and light and sound in the world around them. But some things are very, very difficult. For instance, if we're studying reptiles, it's difficult for us unless we have access to a living reptile for students to really do direct observation and something that is very hands-on. And in that case, in the life sciences, we know that there are many, many good books. Fiction as well as expository books are nonfiction books. We know that children cannot directly experience everything that we want them to. For instance, they can watch video clips, which are very, very powerful. But if you are studying predator and prey relationships or loss of habitat, that is very difficult to develop a true understanding of how things are interdependent and how living things depend on each other through hands-on activities. You can't observe a range of animals or fully explore the habitats. So from the confines of a classroom, we know that some things we will be able to do with hands-on and some things we will have to pair books. And they are recommending using fiction and nonfiction to teach life science. And it's an alternative form of instruction that they have found to be very fun as well as effective. Sometimes these books are also called text sets. High-quality science-themed children's picture books have really taken off on the whole world of plants, animals, ecosystems, and natural processes to life. Perfect Pairs actually helps us where science programs can't help us with hands-on activities. We can't always have hands-on activities with the life sciences that we would like to. It allows students to fully explore science topics that can't be taught through direct experience. Now, we know the ideal is to have children, if we're studying habitats, we might be using the Perfect Paired text and study habitats and do a lot of reading and writing about the habitats. And perhaps we might be able to plan a field trip to visit a habitat. But in today's world, we also know that we have access to video clips as well as to great children's literature. As a teacher, you know that the finely crafted children's books have the ability to motivate, engage, and really delight children. And the good news is that we have more and more of these wonderful children's authors who are creating science-themed titles that are much more innovative and intriguing than they have ever been. Here we see in the textbook, in the introduction, a first grade child observes the inside of a bean with a hand lens, but we also know that children can't build a solid understanding of key science concepts simply by reading about them. They need more support, more guidance. Students learn best by participating in a range of experiences that introduce and reinforce scientific ideas, and these authors really suggest the use of the pairing of text around a topic. Children, if they have these opportunities, they can move beyond the lesson